reach out, tag you. Not see you. Okay, so I want to thank you all for coming, and it's going to be an action-packed hour little plus. We always tend to go over a little bit because people ask a lot of questions, which is great. But before we get started, Kirsten wanted to come up and make a quick announcement for Evo. So we're going to give her some time on the stage, and then I'll be right back up and get going again.
Yeah, cool. I'll say it from right here.
Oh, there you go.
So Evo Nexus, you guys are at Evo Nexus right now. We are a no strings attached tech startup incubator, and we are accepting applications right now until August 31st. So if you have a startup and you're looking for a great collaborative environment, we might be a good fit for you guys. So if you have any questions, you can grab my card over here or email me at klong@comnexus.org, and I'd be happy to give you guys more information. Next Thursday, we'll have an open house. So if you guys have any questions regarding the applications or what it's like to be an Evo Nexus, you can attend that as well. So we'd like to see your guys' applications in.
Great.
Cool.
All right, thanks very much. How many of you, this is your first time in the Evo Nexus building? Never been in here before? Yeah, quite a few of you. So this is the actual, one of the incubators. They have two. They mentioned one in Sereno Valley. And so actually Chris and I worked with a couple companies in here. I'm still working with one currently. They are startups, a great place, I must say. You get free rent, you get a lot of their perks, you get free marketing Mondays, whether you're here or not. You get a lot of their nice perks that even help you teach you how to raise money. Very important thing for a startup.
And free beer.
And you get free beer, exactly, until it's gone, like today.
Yep.
Nobody mentions the graduates who, sell for $200 million.
This is true.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see right here, EcoATM, someone mentioned that earlier. EcoATM is one of our graduates. They were sold to acquired by Outerwall in 2013 for $350 million. So they're one of our graduates. And on there, you can also see other acquisitions. We've raised over $573 million in funding, all of the startups combined. So we're really excited about the great things that have been happening. We have Qualcomm is a strategic partner, so is Cisco, and so is Mitchell, and they're all looking to invest in startups. So it's a great time to be a part of Evo Nexus. We're also opening up a branch in Irvine. So lots of opportunities. Yep,
Wow.
new to you.
To me, it's like a giant Starbucks with coffee and beer.
Yeah, seriously.
And free wireless. I mean, how could you go wrong, All right, thanks. Appreciate that. So just a quick to kind of helping Chris and I, this is very unique for us, and I'm saying that because usually what happens is, and I'm just kind of looking around, this one's about even. We usually have more people show up than sign up. And anybody ever heard of that before? At any meeting where you have more show up than sign up, it's a rare thing, right? We're trying to figure out why. So by show of hands, this kind of helps us collect some data. So how many of you signed up today to show up today? Raise a hand. Okay, some are regulars, some of the new. How many people signed up and brought somebody with them that they didn't sign up, but you brought somebody with you? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that counts for some of them. There's some seats up here if you want to see right here. And it's like the hot seat. I might ask you a question. I'm just kidding. You can sit there. It's got a nice swivel. Your butt can go one way, arms the other. Your seat shape there. All right. And then how many of you, this is more than your third or fourth event? You've been here quite a few times. You like to hear us talk. You love our jokes. Our information's kind of okay. Great.
No, wait. No, we love your
Oh, one fan. I got a fan of one.
More pizza for her.
So for you new people, I'm Randy Gerson of Gerson Associates. This is my partner, Chris Dion. Together we have way too many years that I want to say, can we date ourselves in successes and failures in marketing for some very well-known entities. The well-known entities, hopefully the successes. We have some there. And what we do here is we actually share some very intimate information, and it's more like a how-to. So you go to a lot of seminars, and they're very general. This is very deep dive. So what we say is you'll walk away at least with one, if not two things you could implement tomorrow into your marketing. And we cover a lot of topics, and we've written almost 20 topics or more to date. And we're actually on round 2 where we're diving deeper into each topic. And we took a pretty deep dive the last time. So each time you come, you're going to get even more information. We use our current client list to actually show actual examples from companies instead of made-up ones. Kind of nice, huh? And show what worked and what didn't work for them. We kind of show that. So that's kind of the key of what you're going to get here. So I'm going to stop, Chris. I'll let you give a few words, and then we'll dive right into position and differentiation.
Let's go into the give the rules.
All right, I'll let
we have rules to follow. Most everybody knows this, but we go through this all the time. So we start off, we look at marketing from a startup perspective. That means you don't have any money or time. Big companies have both, you don't. So we're going to come from that perspective. Number two, you're smarter than the average, so we're going to go fast. Number three, these are what we're going to talk about today and ongoing are certain rules. It doesn't mean you need to follow them, but it's good to know what rules you're breaking. If you disagree, say it, be free. Hey, we don't know the answers, but we're going to at least discuss some possible answers. We want real-world examples. Non-competitive, so if you have something that you've done in the marketing world recently that you would like to share, we'd like to hear. Recency is helpful. Do what it takes to be creative. Sorry, we're out of beer.
We're out of beer.
So it's hard to be creative.
Sorry.
And then that's it. Let's hop in.
Okay, we're going to hop into this topic and we're going to talk about positioning and differentiating. So these are two key things when you have a company, especially nowadays where we live in a world there's an app for that, right? Everybody says, oh, I want to do this. Well, there's an app for that. So how do you differentiate yourself when there's more than one app for that? And you can think of anything you want to do, and I did this the other day. I thought of something. I said, I've never seen an app for this. There was 25 apps for it. I looked it up. I'm not going to tell you the topic, but it just blew my mind. Then I'm like, which one? And that's the reason for positioning and differentiating. And I can tell you the category I looked in was terrible for differentiating. They all looked the same. The only difference was some were free, some cost. Anybody ever done that exercise? And you look through and you just don't know one from the other. So in the app world, they could use a lot of this. You probably run into this as well. It's like, how do you know? And so what do usually people pick? The one at the top is free. Probably the first one they try. Good example is I ride mountain bikes. And so I downloaded an app called Edmondo. Anybody ever heard of it? It's used for running. They have another one called Strava. I could name you more, so you never heard of these apps. These are two of many. And one's free, one's not to use, and that's the choices you make just based on price. Not always a good differentiator. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, also, just want to emphasize the importance. So this is actually the first topic in another 19 topics to talk about marketing. But this is probably the most critical. What's very interesting is to know what websites used to look like 5 or 6 years ago. You used to go to a website and it would be loaded with a bunch of copy, right? All kinds of stuff and arrows and spinning, blah, blah, blah. The new style of website, almost every new website launch right now is one gigantic picture and about 5 words. Have you noticed that? Like almost all websites? I love that because what it's forcing people to do is actually get their unique differentiator and the benefit of their company down to as few words as possible. If you can't do it, you've got problems. So that is part of this whole project, is to figure out how you can explain your company, your product, in less than a sentence.
So a good example is that when I started out, what differentiator did I use about these seminars versus other ones that you go?
Startup perspective.
There was one, and I gave one other talk.
More people show up and sign up.
Yeah, and there was one other I said, you're going to walk away.
Even I. Oh.
Yeah, you're going to walk away with 2 things that you can do tomorrow. That's, a lot of people say that, but you usually don't deliver on that kind of thing. Okay, so those are 3 unique things about what we do, and Chris and I try to live and breathe that everywhere we go. Okay?
So there is a process to typically follow. Yeah.
Can I just point out one thing?
Yeah.
What you just said about having one image and 5 words is great. There's a great article last month through Lead Pages
Yeah.
that talks about sliders and how sliders work against that. And everybody loves sliders these days. And they're saying, get rid of the sliders.
I have some research that suggests that roughly 10% of the people that land on your homepage will actually look at anything other than the first slide. So 90% of the people will look at that first page and never go on beyond and look at the other sliders. People don't look at the sliding pages.
They tune them out. You guys get that? So that if you're going to do the slider as the new image, so if you go to any website, you get the sliders, 3 to 5 different images, and then what else do you get on that the new web page look? What's different now? Anybody? Scroll. Everything is on one page. Okay, you can almost find out everything about that company, everything they do, all the contact information, latest news and everything on the one page. It's just a long, it's like a giant newspaper article that just goes forever. And Chris is right. The research we've seen is people see the first slider only. And so if you're going to use sliders, I would encourage you, if you can do your timing of that one, stay out a little longer instead of flipping through. Because I've noticed myself getting numb to those things when I'm looking at websites, and I'm looking for something else.
Is it?
So do you have links to that theory?
I can email it to you. Leave it here because it also talks about, it's kind of a funny, humorous article. So it has the results. It's done by the great usability guy that studied here at UCSD.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who wrote Don't Make Me Think. Don Norman.
Yeah,
Thank you. So it's his company, and he has this whole thing about nobody, and he has the research that suggests nobody's reading the sliders. He said, therefore, sliders are used for large companies in which your product manager needs to please a whole bunch of people. And so when somebody says, can you put that on the homepage? Sure, I'll put it on the slider. Nobody's going to see it anyway.
A good example of that, those of you who've been to a couple of these sessions with Chris and I, we used to say when you have a budget for marketing, and you're going to do some testing, and you want to do an A/B testing, you have to do an ABC. Everybody remember why we said this? It alludes to what Chris just said. A/B to see which one wins, and C for the CEO who has his own great idea that said you better test this. Okay? So remember that. You got to please internally as well as externally, but you got to drive results.
So what we're going to talk about here is the typical mapping process for differentiation. And if you took any marketing class in college, you've seen it, but we'll go through it real briefly. The adoption life cycle, the majority of companies here are probably in the startup phase, have a new product in a new area, which means that you are at the very early stage of the adoption life cycle. We'll explain to you why that's important. D-Day, which is from a famous book called Crossing the Chasm, which is how you segment your audience and how you might have 5 different messages, but how you do those different messages. And then we'll show you some examples. Okay, so first of all, you've heard people say you have to come up with your elevator pitch, right? You know, your explanation of your company when you go from one floor to the next. And if you can't explain it in that amount of time, then keep on working on it until you do. The concept of positioning is a little bit along those lines. It's a little different. Okay, so first of all, the number one thing you need to do in the process is identify yourself against the competition. If you think you have no competition, get one. You need to have competition in some way, shape, or form in order to sell your product. I know that sounds weird because a lot of people think, I don't have any competition. I'm green energy, I don't have any competition. Of course, it's oil. At TurboTax, when we launched TurboTax, there was no other tax software, right? And then we had, Intuit was Quicken. So our CEO, which was Scott Cook, founder of Quicken and QuickBooks, stood up there, and we had nobody making any financial software package. And he says, does everybody know who our competition is? And you guys know what the competition was? It wasn't CPA. He said it was the pencil. He said that's the way that people were doing their home finances. It doesn't matter if it's not direct competition. So you need to identify your direct competition, but then you need to figure out who you're really competing against. Is it time? Is it energy? Is it apathy? Is it some other product? Is it some other, share of wallet, as you call it? So identify that.
Just make one example. A good example of this, Southwest Airlines, when they first started, had a competitor. It wasn't American Airlines, it wasn't United. Anybody remember their original business model? I did the Harvard Business Study on this. Anybody remember what this is? What?
High-speed train in Texas.
It was cars, trains, taxis, driving. They priced their fares to what it would cost you to drive there. Remember, they did really short distances. So like Vegas, between here and Vegas, used to be $25 each way. Because they figured at that time the gas price, wear and tear in your car, it was cheaper to hop on their plane than it was to hop in your car. Okay, that's how they priced their model. So their competitor was the car. Not United, not American. Again, that's a similar example of Chris saying the pencil. So here's a company that we all know has been extremely successful, one of the few and only profitable companies since the day they opened the door in the airline industry because they looked at it completely different. Okay, that was another great example.
Yeah. So identify, actually move into number 2. Understand how each of these competitors is currently positioning their business. Again, if you don't think you have competitors, think of what is in competition with your product. Documenting that provider's own positioning as it exists today. Comparing the company's positioning to its competitor's identity, viable. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to the next. You guys can read this. Move on to the next. You're going to see the graph that people have known and seen. Keep on going, one more. You guys ever seen this before, right? It's the typical, you have the two axis. Is it price on one axis? Quality, that's what a lot of people tend to look at. But you can figure out how you compare. Let me use one case in point. You just use travel, Southwest Airlines. Back in the day, they probably said price and what? They probably used, rather than quality, which they did not value, they put probably something like
Time was one.
time or even experience, like maybe we're more fun.
No, it was on time.
On time,
So
there you go.
what Southwest did in their Harvard Business Studies, they wanted to become the most on-time airline in the beginning for the lowest cost. Because the airline track record was 40 to 45 minutes to turn a plane around from the time it lands, get everybody off, get everybody on. You go fly a major airline, just time it. It takes about that long. Southwest was doing it in 20 in the beginning. Now they're getting like the rest of the airlines, but that was their model: price and time.
They also made it fun.
That was the other thing. Fun was one of their things to make airlines fun with their corny jokes. Correct. And the peanuts they throw at you.
Okay, move on. Okay, so if you go to Google and you type in positioning statements for certain companies, you will get what their positioning statement is for certain large companies. General Motors and American Express and a lot of those, you can actually find their positioning statements over time. And it might be as simple as this. General Motors is the leading automotive maker that provides affordable vehicles to American families. It's not written in any marketing ease whatsoever. It's just a statement that the fact that they're a leader is important. It's affordable and it's for American families. Simple.
By the way, they still do this. Everybody realize that if you go compare say an economy car to one of the overseas cars, it still will be slightly cheaper. Not that it'll last as long, but price point wise, that's why we always say, hey, there's somebody else bought a GM car, someone else bought one of those. That's how they get into the different markets. They try to underprice. It's really legal, even if they have to have someone else make it for them and put their label on it. This has been their philosophy since day one, and they've stuck to it. Good, bad, or indifferent.
And we already talked about the Scott Cook story about if you don't have a competitor, find one. Okay, so this is where we get into the startup part. In Crossing the Chasm, there is, he talks, I think his name is Jeffrey Moore. Talks a lot about this, and I found this to be true in every single startup that we've ever done. Okay, so what oftentimes happens is people think that there are early adopters, there's an early majority, late majority, and then, or late majority and then late minority, right? People forget about this little piece in the beginning, which if you're a startup that's launching a product on Kickstarter and you have a very innovative product, you're probably really starting over here. Oftentimes, your first orders come from the techies. When we launched Pro Flowers, our first orders came from techies. When we moved into here, we started seeing our customers change. We moved here pretty fast, thankfully. We jumped this chasm pretty quickly. Typically, what happens with companies, startups, you can get this pretty quickly and easily, and you start getting this, and then you hit a wall, meaning these customers behave differently than these. What that also means is that your marketing message may be different at the beginning than when you start going into the majority. Your positioning may be different than when you start going after the majority. Not always, but sometimes. The classic example is Amazon. Amazon changed its positioning and messaging dramatically.
What happened started.
Yeah, does anybody remember what their
What does
positioning and message
Amazon
was?
do in the very beginning?
I think it's just books.
Yes, and
Taping $50 bills on books.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was? Specifically books, And do you remember what their specific message was? What their tagline was? Everybody's even forgotten. Now what I say, we all like, oh yeah, Earth's largest bookstore. Now, I met the guy who was in charge of branding, the VP of branding for Amazon at the time. He said when they launched the company, they knew they wanted to sell toys. They knew they wanted to sell music. They knew they wanted to sell all of it. They said if they started to sell everything, meaning that's actually a message for here. If they started to do that here, they would never, ever have been successful. So they purposefully, what's that?
Now they've abandoned the book. They just want you back in.
Now they can abandon the book. Part of they can abandon the books. That's the difference.
So again, you have to know your audience, which is a whole other topic, but know your audience and keep your positioning and messaging tight. A classic startup CEO mistake is wanting to take over the world and telling everybody. If you want to take over the world, you don't need to tell everybody you're going to be world domination. Keep your message focused in the very beginning, even if you want more later.
Any questions so far? And we're going fast, but just everybody get this? Yes?
Actually, I have a question regarding the Amazon. So at the very beginning, why did they decide to sell books instead of technology stuff, say computers?
Okay, I'll tell you why. That's a good question. There's two aspects, because he answered that. He came up and gave us a presentation. He answered that exact question because we asked. And the one reason was they had a great relationship and a deal with Amazon. I'm sorry, what's the name of the book distribution company that they made the deal with? It was well known for a while. Ingram, thank you. It was Ingram Distribution. So they had a deal with Ingram Distribution. They didn't have that same deal with, it was Tech Data, I think, which was the technology, but they had the deal with Ingram. Also, they had more competition in the tech area. So they decided, because that was a big deal, which do they start? And they said, okay, we have that. Now we could be the best customer service company. We could have the best website. We could have the most amount of books. We could have, and he showed us this entire graph of the things they could be best at. And there was something like 15 items. They said, but we're going to stick to one. We're going to be the best at one of them, not all of them. We're going to try to tackle all of them, but we're only going to tell people about the one. And they decided what made them unique over any other bookstore was that they had every book. How could you, it's almost, you can't beat that.
Just one other thing, timing. Do you remember what was going on in the book market at this time? This is important.
Yes. Well, yeah, keep on going, yeah.
This kind of drove some of the, anybody remember back when it went on in the book market? Everything was brick and mortar, right, back then? Who were the kings of brick and mortar books back then? How about one that's no longer in existence?
Crown.
Crown. And what was the one after Crown? The superstores that first started, remember they went under. Yeah, there was this, I forget the guy's name, he bought up all the Crown bookstores, all the medium-sized bookstores, became the biggest superstores and went under in less than a year. And that's when Barnes & Noble took over a big market share. And that timing was the exact time that year that Amazon launched the books. So they had a deal, they had a market changing at the same time, brick and mortar going under. So timing also is the key to a lot of this stuff. So it's not happenstance, a lot of these success stories you get. A lot of it's timing, deals, and everything else coming together in a company that recognizes this is what's going on, this is the smartest place to head. Versus, as Chris said, saying we're going to be everything to everybody and try to take your ego down this place, okay? Which happens to a lot of CEOs. So it's being smart and looking at market conditions, changing markets, and where you can really have a single niche above the rest of your competition, whether it's cheaper price or it's quality, or whatever it might be.
So is Amazon a bowling alley?
Yeah, you never know.
And if you want to take a look at Amazon's old site or any website's old site, you should of course go back to the Wayback Machine, right? Guys, everybody know the Wayback Machine? I do use that to go take a look at competitors' websites to see how they've changed their messaging.
Everybody get that? Just Google Wayback Machine will take it there, yes?
So when someone actually repositions himself after being, a certain level of success, how do you like strategize that?
How do you strategize what I do?
Like
The typical strategy that is often used would be a basic SWOT analysis. Is that what you were thinking too?
Yeah, yeah.
So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Identify all of those, preferably not alone, but with somebody who's very real about your company. Maybe you, maybe not you. And that's what Amazon and others typically do. You sit down and go through strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and usually what is enlightened from there is what's next. So when we did that at Pro Flowers early on, we identified that one of our weaknesses that we thought was in an area that we never wanted to be in was owning land. We thought that we had great relationships with the flower companies to buy the flowers, but we didn't want to own the flower companies. You know, there were threats from other areas, mainly other gift providers, so we knew we wanted to add things other than flowers to the site, which is simply go through your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that should be done every year. Make sure that you're heading in the right direction.
Not only that, by doing threats, you'll try to anticipate the best you can what other companies are up to and where they're heading. Because that's just as important, because you might try to head somewhere, but another company's going to cut you off in the path before you get there. A good example, when I was at Xerox, they changed who they were while I was there. They went from the copy company to the document company. They went from everything being analog to being this whole digital company. Now they're a completely different company than they ever were. And so they reinvented who they were. So when I started there, they had the old, guys, let's go back now, I'm really dating myself. Okay, I'm not as young as I look, but anyway. They had a fryer as their logo. Anybody remember that besides me? It means you're as old as I am, if you remember that. And they completely changed, remember that? I met Jack Eagles, an actor. Who they were 3 years later, completely reinvented. And guess what? IBM had them off the path before they got there. They were already in the works of doing this. Xerox hadn't done their homework, and I was in some of the rooms there where they were doing the SWOT analysis, and IBM never came up. And those two were head-to-head forever. They said, oh, we're going to surpass that. Boom, IBM came out with all this digital stuff. And made a deal with Oracle, where Xerox didn't, and really took off. Now they've been playing catch-up ever since. But just to give you an idea, you want to anticipate, well, who could do this? Where could they go? You anticipate those moves.
Do you have a question, Rebecca?
Yes, strength, weakness, opportunity, and then they grow up. What is it?
Threats.
Threat.
This guy.
Oh,
I love this guy.
what was I trying to say here? I'm trying to remember. Oh,
Don't fall.
okay, so something to know about innovators. This group, the innovators and early adopters specifically, the best thing about this group is, number one, they are not necessarily price sensitive. Number two, they don't mind bugs in your product. So if you're selling a technology product, it's great, but you can't go from the early adopters into a majority until you fix everything. So when I was at again Intuit and TurboTax, in the early days we got away with a lot of bugs. When we moved into this, no way. Same thing even with Pro Flowers, although Pro Flowers we had bugs all the way through.
They just were harder to
They were
find.
just harder to fix.
Hard to fix, hard to find.
But you know what I mean? So so a lot of people ask me about price testing and how you price your product in the early days and the positioning. You got a little bit of leeway, luckily, in the early days until you move into this.
Yeah, it's
They
easier.
behave differently.
Yeah, it's easier to higher price your product actually here than it is down here until you establish value.
See, this is supposed to be the product. Oof, I'm pathetic. Your product doesn't really work well, and it doesn't look right, and it's not perfect. But the innovators are like, wow, man, that's cool. When you move here, oh, brilliant. But then when you move here, it's just different.
A good example of this is a technology we're all sitting here with today. Who doesn't have a cell phone on them? Raise your hand. That's what I thought. Okay. I had one of the very first cell phones with 100 free minutes. Guess how many minutes I actually heard somebody on the other end? I could understand what the hell they said. About 2. Okay, it cut out. You couldn't get this. It was the old brick, if you guys remember. This giant. They called it a brick because it looked like a brick. You had to hold it with 2 hands. Okay, but again, I was an early adopter. I paid, it was over $1,000. It was ridiculous for that thing. And you could hardly talk on it, but guess what? I was cool because I had this giant thing up to my head. Right? It's a good example of something we take for granted today that was an early adopter back then.
Then there's also there's an entire book called The Innovator's Dilemma. And this is extremely true and very unique innovative products, and that is you cannot ask people what they think of your product because it's so innovative they have no frickin' idea. Okay, so I'm going to give you a case in point. 1997, we launched a company called @Backup, backing up your PC over the internet. Do you know how many people were on the internet in 1997? High-speed cable wasn't around. We did, I think, 5 focus groups. We had American Express invested in us, and we did all this, research. And everybody that was in the focus group and everybody in the research said, "That's amazing. I'll pay $100 a month for it if I don't need to use my iOmega zip drive, or actually it was Colorado Backup. We'll do online backup." So we launched the company with all this information saying everybody loves it. I couldn't give away the product because people like plugging it in and they and try to back up their data. It was terrible. We ended up doing $99 a year, not $100 a month. But they didn't know.
Yeah, quick comment?
Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but what is the bell curve? What is that curve? Why
This
is it
is-
going down on the end there?
This is
Is that one over here?
Yeah, is that difficulty or is that?
no, that's
No,
the life cycle of your product. So
Life cycle.
almost
Life
all
cycle.
products will end up
So
dying.
you cross the chasm, you get up to the top profit, and then the product starts dying on you, come up with something else.
Okay.
Either you've saturated the market or something new's come out and yours isn't the new whiz bang, whatever, someone's got done. Which could happen actually anywhere here that could happen.
And you can think of products that you think wouldn't be on this life cycle, but it is. Let's take Coke. Coke actually follows a lot of this curve. It just so happens that Diet Coke and some of the others keep it up afloat. So that's the constant innovation to keep it up.
Think about
Technology hits this really hard.
Coke's a good example. Remember they brought the original shaped bottle back? That's their new logo. Reinvigorating the original bottle back and making an old product new again. Good example.
Billabong, I heard is about to go out of business. You guys know Billabong?
Squares.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Square. Another one.
Yeah, Square?
What?
Oh,
They're losing money hand over fist.
so is Amazon, but they're still alive.
Does that mean that
I
little
like
square
Square.
thing I have at home's not going to work
I hate to
anymore?
hear that.
Amazon's a bigger business.
Yeah, they are.
So here's an interesting point is they lost control here. So what happened is Billabong is a cool wetsuit, cool clothing. It's surfer, it's cool, right? Totally in this category. Totally when they went from really high-end clothing to only exclusive surfers. Then they went into the surf stores. They went into the surf stores to probably really Ashton Kutcher was wearing it. Then they really took off, right? But once they put it in, and this is so funny, into Costco, they lost control. So all of a sudden, this entire group stopped buying it because it wasn't cool anymore. And
Because
their sales
everybody
went,
can
boom.
have it.
That's always fashion, though.
Yeah, it's fashion.
I don't want someone next to me with my Billabong shirt. Them. Come on. That's not cool. Right?
Therefore, usually what other companies do is they create like a fighting brand. So you keep Billabong over here and put a different brand in there, but I guess Costco said they didn't want that. They wanted the Billabong brand.
Good example of that multiple branding. You guys hear the latest news from Procter & Gamble?
They're shutting down the brand.
Half their brands down. This is a good example, Chris. Just, you read that?
Really? No.
Half the brands of P&G are getting shut down.
Or sold off.
Correct. Or sold off. If
Sold.
anybody wants to buy, some shut down, some sold off. You think of soap, any soap you buy is a P&G product. There isn't hardly any, unless it's Unilever, it's part P&G, right? Get that idea. Yes, you had a question?
Depends, what happened?
Competing brands that Chris was just pointing out, sometimes you put your own brand out to make it unique and compete with the brand that was just sell.
Also, I see stuff at the 99-cent store now.
Stuff like that would be a good example of that stuff, but make it unique. All right, so let's move on. Well, that wasn't the right one.
Well, some of those theories work out okay, because a lot of companies are just there to build up and sell. I mean, so those aren't always negative aspects.
Correct,
If you're
that's
smart
right.
enough to know ahead of time, you sell it when it's high, because you're having something else new, instead of trying to reinvent stuff.
Correct.
Assuming it's the best theory.
Well, it depends on your exit plan. In that case, if you're a startup
Have one.
and you don't have an exit plan, one will be made up for you. Okay? So it's better to not have your exit plan be here you're not going to make any money. It's better to time it somewhere in here. Or you'll have an exit plan that'll be like P&G's where you're selling stuff off, or like Square where you are getting an exit plan, unbeknownst to you.
Either you become an AOL, and you get lost down here.
That's a little more than that. How about a Juno? Remember that? You become a Juno.
Or Yahoo, which is probably stuck right here trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, they want to know what they're going to do when they grow up. So
Holding it on.
maybe that's why everybody calls them those Yahoos, right? It's a joke in the market, right? Give an example.
But I think I believe in her.
Yeah, yeah.
Do it. Okay, do you want me or?
Go ahead.
I found this to be true in, I know Randy has as well, in majority of startups. So the concept is this. In the book Crossing the Chasm, he says, when you're launching, you pick 4, maybe 5 or 6, no more than 8 niche markets. And why is this in positioning? Because you may have a little bit of a positioning statement for that niche. You pick 4 or 5 or 6 niche markets, and you go after those markets. Hopefully 1 or 2 of them will stick. The concept behind D-Day was that as the Allied troops were attacking into Normandy, they attacked multiple beaches, hoping that they would grab a hold of 2. They had 2, then they expand out and go against, go inland or whatever against Germany, right? That was the concept. Same thing works for your company. Same thing works for your product. You're looking for a niche or 2, get hold, then expand. Okay? So, if you are I'm trying to think of a contemporary product right now. So here's a company right here. They make a product that you put a case on your cell phone, and you have a pad in your car, and when you put it on your pad, it automatically charges your cell phone. No need to plug it in, right? Brand new product, right? So they have to figure out what markets do they want to go after. They could go after truckers, who may want it more than anybody. They could go after taxi cab drivers. They could go after the extreme techie folks, just simply the Silicon Valley techies. So the idea is they come up with different positioning, different messages, and go after each of those, and let's see which one sticks. Hopefully one does. If you're lucky, all of them will. Red Bull had 2 strategies when they attacked into the United States. I guess each country had something different. They targeted truckers, who needed to stay up, and then they attacked the one that worked was what? Bartenders. Oh yeah, that's right, they did the sports, but the bartenders is the one that really caught on more than anyone.
Sports
Who
game
would have
day.
thought? People thought, that's stupid. Mix it with, vodka? Nobody's going to do that.
Stay awake while I'm drunk? Are you kidding me?
But, they had a multiple prong strategy, hoping that one would work, and one did.
It's like the guy driving home after his multiple cocktails said, no, officer, I'm wide awake. I had a Red Bull in my drink.
Also, the Red Bull in Thailand, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, the original?
Yeah, it's not even carbon, it's horrible tasting.
Yeah, it's a completely different drink. They reformulated it here.
And
Typical.
saying the one here is good?
Comparatively speaking.
Yeah, better.
Give me an idea.
Goes down easy after the first game.
Okay, we're gonna play name that position.
Safety.
Safety. Anybody else?
No.
Is that still their position? Pretty much.
Innovation.
I always thought ease of use. Who said ease of use? I always think of ease of use, but yeah, innovation now. I think they went from ease of use to innovation. I don't know.
Well, the good news about Apple is, and I always say, I'm a PC guy, but I will tell you one thing I think that Apple's done brilliant is they've captured some of the business market back and you can see it just in this room. Chris has a Mac. He's not a designer. Before, if you were a graphic designer, you had that machine. If someone asked me 10 years ago, should I buy a Mac or PC? I go, what are you going to do with it? My first question. Now you don't ask that anymore.
But they attacked it through like human lifestyle, personal
Correct.
lifestyle. They didn't go from the business end because they knew they couldn't
Correct.
attack or win against that.
Exactly.
Correct.
They went
So then they
somewhere
went
that
the
they could.
backwards way, sort of.
Backdoor. They backdoored their way in. And their market share now used to be, let's see, when I last looked, this is 10, 15 years ago, they had 2% of the market in the
PC market.
computer world, yeah. Now it's a lot greater percentage. So they've actually chunked away a little bit at that.
And
You're going to
they're
see it.
rated number 1 brand
Yeah.
in America.
They have that one brand. You just look at this building. I walk around now and I see a lot of Macs in here where this was a startup 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen that at all. Because one, they had trouble with the networks, had a lot of issues, but they've been a great innovator. A local company,
Everything under one roof.
everything under one roof. That's an interesting perception. Anybody else on Kaiser?
Quality of care.
Quality of care. That's really what they went after, is quality of care. Not that they deliver on it, but that's what they went after. How about one other thing? What do you know about, think about this market. It's HMO, PPO primarily now, but they were one of the first big self-contained, owned their hospitals. That's really where they were, HMOs. You don't refer out of Kaiser, you referred in to Kaiser. Once you're in, once Kaiser's model was, once they got you, they held on to you forever. That's really their business model. But it was quality of care is really where Kaiser came out. Because they controlled all the doctors, they controlled everything. Here's a good one, Uber. How many of you use Uber besides myself?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. Position for Uber?
No DUIs.
No Yeah, maybe, but I don't think that was their position.
Quick transportation for cheap.
Quick transportation for cheap.
Personal car.
You're on, yeah, it's more like a personal car. And you can see how these guys are positioned well. Here's another one that we just talked about.
What is Square's position?
I know what it was.
Sales terminal for small businesses.
That's who they are. That's not a positioning statement. That might be the reason why they're running into trouble.
Cash register.
Yeah, they got a very small margin business.
Cash register on your phone.
Right. Which is not really, again, a position.
Convenience.
Convenience.
Emergency, yeah.
Convenience. That's it.
Convenience was it. That was their position at the time. And then they got chunked into that very quickly. Yeah, the next one that came out, who came out right after Square?
PayPal.
What?
PayPal, the triangle.
PayPal actually
Yeah,
out
they-
before.
Well, yeah, but nobody knew. They didn't do a good marketing job.
Yeah.
Everybody thought Square was the I know someone told me that today. They go, you know, PayPal was first. I go, yeah, but who knows that? Not even PayPal knows that.
So PayPal actually is a good example of what not to do, right? Because
Correct.
they just didn't do change the technology, just change the shape.
Yeah, I don't know, you know, with PayPal, I don't know, I haven't talked to anybody over there to find out what they were really thinking when they came out with that, because they just really didn't launch it hard, yes.
So I have both. PayPal makes you like confirm your merchant account, and it takes a couple days to get the PayPal reader, with Square you get it out.
That's away from the convenience factor, right? Who's gonna wanna do that? Yeah, you can get a Square and you're up and running that day.
I called my Chase Bank because that's where I'm authorized.net, and yeah, even they told me, why don't you just get Square? I'm like, all right, I already got that.
PayPal's bigger and growing and.
Yeah, they are, yeah, exactly, yeah, there's other different things, we get the idea. Okay, case study, we'll talk about
We already
Amazon.
went through that one.
Yeah, we did, so, for flowers, we did.
No?
Oh,
Go back.
go back to flowers?
Yeah.
There we go, okay.
All right, so in the early days of, does everybody know Pro Flowers or Provide Commerce? So we were a flower company. We started, well, yeah, as of like last week. They got bought by FTD.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just got the group on adding today.
Provide Commerce, yeah. But when starting up, the concept was there were already other flower companies, right? 800 Flowers, and FTD, and 800 Flowers is already pretty aggressive on the web. This was 1999 or thereabouts. So we did this analysis, but we also found another company that was doing a really great job of delivering really high quality flowers if you ordered on the phone or via a catalog. Their name was Calyx and Corolla. And we thought, what? They're doing really well. Why wouldn't that work, but on the web? It's really that simple. So we identified that we could do something different than the competitors, which means that we were going to source the flowers directly from the growers and deliver the flowers from the growers directly to the individual. Typically, flowers go from a grower to a wholesaler to a distributor to a florist to you. It takes 7 to 10 days for the flower to go from the grower to you. So we thought if we could shorten that, number one, that's less money out of each one of these, and number two, the flowers can be fresher. So that was how we were going to compete against 800 Flowers, which was already like a $500 million plus business or FTD, which was huge. So then we launched, and then we did this analysis of how we were going to position the product. Our tagline in the very beginning was totally different than what it was now because we had to explain what we did. In the beginning, you have to explain a little bit more about what you do and why you're better and why somebody should believe you. When you're Apple, you don't need to say anything because everybody already knows you, right?
So there's a good reason why that is. It's the same with direct sales. We've talked about this. What's the number one reason you buy anything? One word.
Relationships.
And what's a relationship built on? Trust. The number one reason you buy any product because you trust either the brand or the product. That's what Chris is alluding to here. So keep that in mind. That's why they had to say what they say to build trust, so they believe.
So we had the slogan, the whole front, not the whole front page, but the only words other than the names of the flowers was, we deliver fresher flowers, delivered direct from the grower, guaranteed to last 7 days or your money back. That was it. So fresher flowers, direct from the grower, so you can understand why they're fresher, and then guaranteed. That guarantee was critical for us. We had this big, long discussion. Our concern was, if we guaranteed the flowers to last 7 days, do people think, wow, you mean my flowers are only going to last 7 days? That was our biggest concern. So we decided to stick with it, we launched with it, and it worked.
Doing very well.
And we were not the first to do it, just like Amazon was not the first company to ship books online, right? We were the first to claim it. We were the first to claim direct from the grower flowers. We never said we were the first. All we did was we did it hard, and then all of a sudden our company started writing, this is the first company to ever do this. No, it's the first company that you ever heard of that did it.
So let's look at some unique positioning of a few task management systems. Does anybody not know what a task management system is? You'll know what it is in a minute.
Yeah, we wanted to show you here's a very, very competitive area, task management. There's probably over 100 task management software or apps out there. What makes them different? So,
It's kind of open discussion. So what makes this one different from the 100 and whatever ones out there?
what makes this one different?
Yeah, what's their positioning? What's that?
They're only showing you mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Cross-compatibility.
What's that?
Cross-compatibility with iPhone, Android.
Yep,
It's portable.
free.
Well, let me ask you this. To me, when I saw this, would this be a default?
It's what?
A default these days? How many people in here have an iPhone? Raise your hand. How many have an Android? That's why I said it's a default. It's like half and half. If you don't on both platforms. When I saw this, Chris was showing us, I go, if you don't even do this, you're not even a player in my mind if you can't do both the two major phones that are out there. It'd be like saying, well, I work on a phone that doesn't exist anymore, one of my old cell phones at home that's neither one of these platforms. Yeah, that'd be a non-place to go.
So I'd like you to look at the very first word that you read. What is it? But notice how did it stick with you? Okay. But I think that's where they're really trying to center on, which is a good one, but maybe they're not explaining it well. And you'll see that as you move through others.
Well, when I think of a unique message, I've always been told that if you really want to make your elevator pitch unique, it can't be something that another company can say. Any company can say that.
You're right.
That's a great point. In fact, if you were buying a task management product and it wasn't productive, would you buy it? That's why I said by default. I mean, everything they have under me here is all by default. If you don't have any of this stuff, I don't even look at you.
They've got one hidden down there at the bottom too, collaborate with as many people in one.
Is that kind of common?
Let's move on.
Some of them
See some of
charge
the other
for
ones.
that.
Correct. Correct. Some do charge for collaboration. So that might be their only hook, you know. But it's hard to, I couldn't find this when I first saw that. And I was like, oh, maybe that's the hook. But it took me a few minutes to actually look. And Chris and I are looking for this stuff. You know, we're actually looking for that message. You're not looking for it, so you're not going to see it. We're looking for it, having trouble finding it. That's when we kind of crack up each other. Did you see it? No, I didn't see it.
But you
Oh,
don't
let me point it out to you.
sign up for free.
Yeah.
Usually when I see sign up for free, that means they're going to ask for a credit card and charge me later.
Or they're going to ask me for my email and my address.
No, that's only because that's what I do. When I do my marketing.
Protect me.
by the way, that's what we do with all your business cards we collect every week. We sell them. This is how we make money at these things. Just-
No, not yet.
Kidding, I agree.
Actually, use it for that purpose.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So which one is the bottom?
Remember I said just one, like a few, like less than a sentence? So how do you explain task management, yours versus everybody else's, in less than a sentence? So organize anything
Musical
together.
bar, it's a sticky note thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
cool, it's a good product.
Which one is that you mentioned?
Trello?
Yeah, I've seen this. Notice you can sign up for free here too. Get de facto standard.
Okay?
Any other comments? Yes.
But, you know, the granddaddy is Evernote, right?
Yeah.
So every
Yeah,
time I read these
Evernote's not a
things,
task management system.
Yeah, they're not attached, that's a
it
to-do
can be
list.
used as that.
Yeah,
Well, then, you know what, we'll take a look at
Said
Evernote.
It's
organize
not really good
everything.
at it.
That's, as soon as I read that, I thought of Evernote.
I'm with you, it's a good point.
There's the one big picture with 5 rows.
Which, by the way, I can't live without.
There's a good one.
Is this the video conferencing one?
This is do.com, no, it's not video conferencing.
Oh. I thought it was bad grammar for that.
I thought this was interesting.
Like the noun, do.
I thought this had at least a different approach than the others.
Yeah.
So how many of you, if you saw this, would actually click to find out more or start now? Raise your hands.
Not if I was looking for a task manager.
Yeah. It does catch your attention, but it doesn't get you to take action. Remember, that's what you want, someone to take action. That's the key thing, right? Doesn't, you know what, Chris, been enough meetings where say, oh, that looks cool. Everybody in the meeting room's like, that's cool, let's launch our company. Cool, yeah, exactly. Out the window.
But people always associate meetings with boredom and negativity, so, I mean, that's a decent hook, I think.
Yeah, I don't see
I think
people
in a
laughing.
big company would be more likely to click on that.
What's that?
Somebody in a big company would be more likely to click on that.
Exactly. So it depends who they're targeting here. Could also make a difference. But you're right. That's same old, same old. Another new what we call Me Too product.
Maybe it's this one. This is cool, man.
Looks like you use a lot of the apps that we're showing on here.
So is
I
that
wanna see the scroll
Android,
through
are those
your phone.
two different phones? I can't even tell if that Android is not iPhone or.
They're both iPhones.
They look like
No,
both
they're-
iPhones.
No, they're Samsung.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
got
there it is, yeah.
the left one has the cool band around it.
Did you, when I saw this, I was thinking that this is a consumer product, and the one prior is a B2B product.
Yeah.
Other one you use for your office work, this one you use for your grocery list. I'm not sure, but that's one thought. Notice how it says, you know, dessert, coffee beans, milk from farmer. This is your personal life. That at least does some sort of differentiation.
I like this one. So you're talking about Evernote? Here, manage your Evernote. It's got to have something to manage your Evernote.
This is actually one of the best-selling ones.
Yeah.
For milk and milk.
Yeah.
They have a lot of add-ins that do that functionality.
That's their unique differentiator, right?
Well,
Add-ins?
they have a lot of third-party connections with their program, which is what makes them unique. So they're partnered with other people.
That's what I'm thinking about.
That's this,
Exactly. Here, you know, from
what they're saying here. This kind of says, okay, we manage, we work with Milk, or, I mean, Evernote, or any of the others, right?
Anybody else? Good stuff.
Not very much differentiation, though, other than that. It looks like
It's not
that's
really
it.
good at being a task manager.
No. Very general. Yes.
I like the phrase, never forget.
The milk.
Never forget.
Never
Yeah.
forget.
That might have been all I should have said, is never forget anything without the milk thing. They keep playing off the name a little much on there, and it does get lost. I mean, it's a lot of, look at this, the other thing about this is visually, this length of this line is the same as the one above it, so they get lost visually. Just remember, we had another session, we talked about graphics and the way to make things stand out and not compete with each other. Font size, type of font, everything competes with your eyeball on a page. So you have to know how to distinguish those very easily. So,
Okay, so how do you determine, yeah, go ahead.
Just gonna ask a question, so how
website?
Yeah, just as Google. How does it fit that model?
Well, I'll only speak on one thing that they've done differently. The one thing about Google that they've made it fresh, the Google search, when you just go to the Google sites, they've made it fresh. What's the one thing they did? It's been a little over a year now, almost two. Anybody remember what they did differently?
Rotating patterns.
Rotate the graphics on them.
Yeah, the graphics. They started having fun with the word Google. And then you clicked on it in the beginning, it took you to a static page. It was a history about somebody, it was their birthday, some famous person. And then when soccer World Cup came around recently, it really made it fun. Even if you weren't into soccer, I forgot the number of clicks. That was ridiculous how many clicks I got just on their logo. Talk about a branding initiative that worked. When I first saw that, I go, great, they got so much damn money, they put a bunch of people in a room and say, hey, have fun with their logo. I thought that. Then I started seeing the genius behind it and the long-term strategy behind that and what they did with it. On World Cup, I'm not a big soccer fan, but I was impressed. It got me looking every day. What do they do with today? Who's playing today? I could tell you who's playing that day by the logo. I mean, it was pretty ingenious how they weaved that into everyday life.
But it's also Kleenex now.
Correct. It is. It's like Kleenex now. You got it. Everybody get that analogy?
But do you notice, though, how Apple and Google has forced companies to really simplify everything on their website to fewest words possible on that page and a link? We're not as busy as we used to be with as much words, so simplify as much as possible. I don't think you should simplify for the sake of simplifying. You should put as much as you need to in order to sell the customer, right? But how do you know what your positioning should be? If you have 5 or 6 ideas, how do you determine what the right one is? You could do some testing by doing some landing page tests, right? So you would create maybe a couple of different headlines. So I'll just give you an example of one that we're working on right now. This isn't done, but I'll show you the concept. Okay, the concept is you come up with your headline, and here's one of them. We give you the data and tools that simplify your reserve study. You don't know what a reserve study necessarily because it's targeting a specific group of people. So they're either people in HOAs or people that manage large buildings, and they have to figure out how much money do I need in budget reserve in case the roof starts caving in. So it's a very specific audience. But they don't know if that's the right headline or, let's see if I can go back, or this is the right headline.
Pull the other one up.
Where is it?
And how's that cross-referencing? I don't quite understand the theory behind it.
Which one?
Well, how's that site cross-referencing different headlines based on competitors that use the same?
No, the only thing it can do is you can send it out to the same group of people and do the A/B split. So you can test real estate reserve study software helps you prepare, protect, and comply versus a positioning of we give you data and tools that simplify. Okay? And you would have it like we put it on the exact same page, right? You wouldn't have the 2 different pages. But in Unbounce, you can do it right in. Let me show you right here.
Measure it. For those of
Yeah,
you
you can have it right here, and you can give weight. So this one would get 50%, this one would get 50%, and you know which one is getting much more interest and action, and then you can take that and put it on your homepage.
And it's splitting that based on 50-50 or whatever ratio you want. Down.
Any ratio you want. You type in the ratio right here. Well, you can't type it in now because I would need to
For those of you that are new that haven't seen this before, this tool, we've mentioned this in some of our other sessions, this is unbounce.com. You don't have to be a graphic artist to create a landing page. What's that?
Yeah, so notice how this one doesn't say software.
The other one, why would you care?
Right, what, maybe people don't care about something. Maybe software scares people.
Yeah, a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to share, if you want to see how good you are at guessing which headline won, go to whichtest1.com,
Oh, yeah.
and you'll see how bad you are.
Yes, you are. You will learn quickly that you stink. And then you'll come up with better ones. Did you guys all hear that? So www.unbounce.com is a landing page site that Chris and I use a lot with a lot of our clients, and it works really well. You can A/B split test easily. It tracks, there's pluses and minuses to it, but the pluses are it easily tracks all the hits that go there. You can put a registration page there, collect information, you can see how many. And if you have a sales team, you can have that information delivered right to your salesperson right after it happens and have them make a phone call.
Do you have an affiliate link?
What's that?
Do you have an affiliate link?
No, no, it doesn't do, that's the cons. Affiliate link, and also you lose
No, he
data.
means that we get money every time we promote
No, no, no,
them.
The other thing is you don't get hits to your websites off your website, which is the pro and the con.
So it's not linked to Google Analytics or anything? There's no Google Analytics in the
You can
back?
add Google.
You can
Analytics
add the
to it
Google
if you
Analytics
want.
too if you want.
We just launched and we have like a pretty landing page. Could we put it up there and see what if people can guess what we do?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What is it?
I'll let you guys figure it out.
Go for it.
Hang on, I'm gonna play that. Anybody remember Johnny Carson? I'm gonna go.
It's so funny, but you know, like this one task is like one of the most difficult things you can do. It's hard. It's not easy.
There's a great story in Wired about how Obama got elected based on A/B testing.
Correct.
Phenomenal.
It is a great story about that. Very genius how they did all that. And actually, a lot of that came from what's his name? The guy that's on CNN now, George. I always pronounce the Greek guy. Yeah, he did a lot of this kind of stuff when he was running campaigns. Do you remember?
This, to me, this sounds like some sort of incentive for home buyers and sellers. Not
By the way, we're going to charge for this. So.
I don't know, not necessarily a tool, but some sort of incentive, like there's something that you get.
Let's just go real quick. This will be fun for you. Okay, raise your hand if you have a comment. You think you know what they're selling. This will be fun for you. Yep.
They are selling some services to real estate agents.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Lead generator for real estate agents, some way to keep in touch with their past clients or growth clients.
Anybody else?
It's helping small service providers get the new homeowner's business.
Yeah. Don't look around. Just close your eyes and just listen. This is good feedback. This is great. You won't get this anywhere else. This is true incubator. Anybody else?
I think when you buy a house, often a real estate agent will hand you a list of recommended vendors in your area, and that's something.
Okay. Anybody else?
Way to get paid for referrals.
Okay. Anybody else? Notice you haven't heard the same thing twice. It's either good or bad. You can figure it out. It's good feedback.
I'm not quite sure what it's about.
Okay.
I'm not sure what kind of agents is selling houses, I'm assuming.
Okay. And don't look for a nod. That's what he wants to do. Raw feedback, I'm sure. That's why I said don't look. Just listen.
I was confused by the right side on the phone, and then I think it's like, I see vendors down there too, so I think it's like linking contractors and people that can do things on houses, whether you're buying or selling.
That would be my.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's
That
a
didn't
small
match.
work.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll say it. Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
I think the small writing is clearer than the bigger subtitle writing.
Okay.
First impression is that it was something related to real estate agent that do something exchange like contact. But then when I read the list, then it's like, oh, okay, contractor. It's like somebody that is want to buy something and now is in need of contractor. And now here I can find something, some help. So I think that without the two, it was kind of confusing.
Okay. So now that we've heard, I can't even count how many different opinions of what they do. Let's hear from the source of what they really do. And I'll probably change this after this. So,
The real dizzle, please.
what's the real dizzle? Please stand up and tell us what you do. In one sentence or two.
It's an agent's personal Angie's list. So, like she said it perfectly.
That's a good elevator pitch.
Wait, say it
Say
again.
that again loudly and slowly.
Your personal Angie's list.
But what's the difference between that and
This is your personal. Because it's your own ad.
And the user doesn't have to pay, right?
what's that?
There's the differentiator. Hear that? You don't have to pay.
Oh, I got it.
That's the difference.
Yeah, I always wonder about Angie's List. I go, I find my roofer, and I gotta still pay monthly fees every month. My roof's done.
Actually, that's a brilliant idea. I like it.
It
Yeah,
is.
well, their stock has fallen from 28 to 7.
Exactly, yeah. Believe me, I looked at the model, I'm like, I'm not gonna pay 12 months for one contractor. My kitchen's done. What do I need to keep paying?
I did. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's consumer consumer reports for service providers.
Correct. There's a lot of companies.
This is a different one?
No, this is just the one, we did one page, and you scroll. So,
got it. Can I show you something else? Yeah, you made me think of something else too.
By the way,
So,
thanks for sharing.
another way to do what
Appreciate
you
that.
just did with everybody here, but online with thousands of people, is usertesting.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you guys used that or tried it?
How many are familiar with usertesting.com? Yeah, very few. Okay, Chris is going to show you how you can get this kind of feedback.
I don't know if I have my sign in on me
So
right now.
since you can do that on the internet for free, we won't charge you for that
Yeah,
section.
so what this is, I can't remember my login, otherwise I'd show you. So what this is, no, I have a dash lane, I just don't have it live, and I don't think I have the one for this one.
Yeah, you
Get the video?
Yeah, well, I'll explain it, or it shows it right here. So what you do is, you can upload your website, let's say the website you just showed, and you tell user testing, find 10 people to come to the website, and you get to ask 3 to 5 questions. The first question typically is, the user testing will show the website to an individual, give them 5 seconds, and then turn it off and say, what does this company do? And they have a video of the person, and you can hear the person, and they speak out loud and say what they do. It's, I think, $35 per user test. But what's great about it is, let's say you, at 10 o'clock in the morning, he came up with the website and he's done. You can launch it to user testing. You can have 4 or 5 people do their analysis. And I would say in about 2.5 hours later, you have the feedback.
Well, we just did.
It's so fast, just like this. It just takes hours, not minutes.
Question?
Where do they get users from?
So you can do one of 2 things. Use their users, or you can use your own. They have a database of users that they've collected, so therefore you can select, like, I want males between the ages of 35 and 45 that work in the tech industry,
You can pick your
or
target.
whatever. So you can do some sort of segmentation.
So if you're selling monster trucks, you don't have to pick females. You can pick males in the Midwest that, you know, you can
Notice how it's user testing, so it's not just, I use it more for message testing than I
Unless
do
you like monster
usability testing, but you really use for usability testing, so you can see where they click and if they're having problems with the website and stuff, but I like to use it for message testing before even doing the landing page test.
Yep.
Is it
Question.
kind of reciprocation thing where like if you are a user who tests other people's sites and you can get other people's
But if not, you should launch something like that, because that's a pretty good idea.
Sounds like a crowdsourcing collaborative site.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
You had a question?
Sure. So a few weeks ago, you guys talked about like this trend towards technical or business buyers wanting to get more information up front
Correct.
before they even make a call or anything to you.
B2B selling.
B2B selling. How does that fit in with what you're talking about here with, in terms of some of these new trends in website design where there's less words? I mean, is it just the homepage is less words, and you click through and you get more, or, you know?
You want to show, wait, Chris, want to show Genius Discovery? That one work, and that's right up to what you just talked about.
Yeah, sure.
Let me show you exactly
Also,
what you're talking
I
about.
wanted to point out, did you notice that the majority of what we showed you, and a lot of the minimal words, is if there's a free trial or if it's a free product. In a big B2B world where it's an expensive product, this might not work as well.
We're going to show you one where this product is expensive, and it's in a very competitive market, and Chris and I were playing around, and we came up with this genius idea that actually is working. This company's growing, I guess I can share, but they're growing over double digits, high double digits, like not the 10, but the next one up this year. And they were using this exclusively as the major launch in their B2B sector, and they're in the healthcare industry. This is one right here, the theme. And this is what we use for the download. And this Genius Discovery, just find out more, has been working like crazy. That's all we're selling, the book. And at trade shows, we're getting people calling up and reserving a book to show up at the booth to get their book. And I'm a cruddy writer, but I actually wrote a lot of this book. I can tell you, it's not flowery, it's in Kincaid 6, it's what, 30 pages or something? But it's going off the shelves, we can't even keep them at the trade shows and stuff. It's the most craziest thing you've ever seen. We tested it, it seems weird. We have a series of 6 images, Chris, we're going with the superhero and Genius. So we have the Genius things to launch out, and then the kid superhero for the product is going from there. We have all kinds of kid images we're using throughout the year to keep it fresh.
But there it is. It's a little bit more of a high involvement, so there's a little bit more words here. And then to give them more information in the book, you have to give some
Just
information.
going to doctors, so we're dealing with the science end, and I will tell you, I talked about this before, if you sell too much science to doctors, they never buy anything from you. But you got to give them just enough science so they think you're legit. It's a really fine line to play in the healthcare market. I wanted to share, this is an example that we put up that we weren't sure if this was going to work or not, but it's just been like literally crazy. And it's been going about a year, was it around this now? Almost a year, and it's still working. Now, we're working on a new thing for this company because we know this isn't going to work forever. So I keep telling Chris, is it still working? He goes, yeah, the numbers are still up. I go, okay, next month, is it still working? And we got to come up with the next idea because this isn't going to work forever. It's going to have its product life cycle and go down as well like everything else. We crossed the chasm with this. It's working to get us more sales, and it's driving more leads and sales.
Yeah, and by the way, this product does more than what's said here, but we selected one positioning statement, which is fighting inflammation. But in this world, you can't say it does fight inflammation because you're going to get the FTC taking a look at you a little bit closer than you want.
And you got
So you
them,
just
the
simply
FDA,
ask the
and everybody
question.
else on your
Want to fight inflammation?
Anybody know why we picked inflammation? Of all the illnesses out there, why we picked inflammation?
Because celiac is the hot button disease right now.
It is.
It is, that's one, but inflammation is the root of almost all diseases, pretty much. All the doctors know that. It's the root for everything else. So everything else you get started with inflammation somewhere in the body. And that's why we hung our hat on that, because we figured that'd get their attention. So that's about it, Chris?
Yeah. There's two other websites if anyone's interested. They're crazyegg.com.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For heat map analysis of what the users move the mouse.
Yep.
And there's also getclicky.com, which will show what the user's doing live
Yeah.
as they're visiting the
It's like
site.
Tea Leaf used to be.
Correct,
You
yes.
guys remember Tea Leaf? It showed the actual session. You guys ever heard of that? They have software. What's the name of the second one?
Getclicky.
Get Clicking.
Yeah.
So Get Clicking's like I used to use Tea Leaf in the insurance industry. It actually showed the session. Actually, I could watch where somebody's mouse went live on my webpage, what they clicked on, watch their keyboard go, and they filled stuff in. You could actually see how long it took them and stuff. It's like the crystal ball without the crystal ball.
Google Analytics has that feature, I think, now.
I was wondering when all that was coming out.
Math or something like that. This is really cool.
Yeah.
So when the person's interacting, they generate
Yeah, here's quick tracking overlays. Oh, you're voting Dizzle?
ID,
There you go. Pretty good.
mouse, and the keyboard. For tracking.
So, yes.
Tracking.
Can't trust this. This is if your eyes are where you make your decision with is not the same place as your hand is and what your mouse is.
It may or not be. That's why you do both. Try to put
but
the
in
two
terms of
together.
like getting a visual of what's actually happening in terms of the cognitive task that the user's performing, it goes with the eyes more than it goes with the hand.
Here's the other thing with some of this
This
stuff
is
too.
mouse tracking, not eye tracking.
That's mouse tracking on this one.
Correct.
Yeah, and the eye tracking is a little differently. The thing I always try to tell people is in a consumer and business situation, by a raise of hands, how many of you, when you're, like right now, listening to me and on your iPhone, like some of you, see multitasking? I mean, we're always multitasking.
Note taking.
Note-taking. Same thing, multitasking. So you're multitasking while you're doing something else. We all do this, including when we're driving. So we live in a world of, if you're only doing two things at one time, you're not doing much, right? So you're doing 3, 4, or 5 things at one time. So just keep that in mind, yes?
How does it get this data? Is it like create like a middleman website between users and your website? How does it?
No, it's just a little JavaScript in your site, server site, and it's just tracking the mouse.
Yeah, it just tracks the mouse. As a matter of fact, Google Analytics used to have it. I think they got rid of it.
Yeah, I remember they had
It
it.
used to have it in there. So it just tracks the user's experience.
This one only you have to physically put in your website.
It's this much code that you put on your website, on every page that you want tracked.
I mean, how does this work? Because you just type your website in.
This is fake. This is not real. What will your real big mad look?
So, how many of you parked downstairs? So the parking for the new people, the machine's right there. That little mean you slide your thing with the arrow up, it'll put an SB on it. Make sure you do that before you go. A little bit of last housekeeping. So we're back in 2 weeks, right? And the next topic is, remember we have on the...
I think personally,
We have so
I
many.
want to say landing pages again, but maybe not.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, if you want to leave your
That's my last
card.
one to say. Put your
And I can
business
also
card
email
up on the
that too.
table here. We'll send you a copy of the presentation, and then we'll
You
sell
already
your
have
data to at least 100 people.
And if you've already given us a card, we'll automatically send it.
Sound like you need a task manager there. Chris.
Yeah, we should really be a task manager.
I haven't found one to position itself right for me yet.
I want to thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. We're very happy up here to